you doing, my dudes?
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the NerdBall Fantasy Football Show. I am your humble host, Pete Rogers, and I am joined, as I am most every week, by my fellow nerds, resident old man Clark Barnes, and the working girl Jordan Smith. Guys, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Pete.
Just prepping to be buried by snow. Keep an eye out for those Saturday matchups.
Good Lord. Jordan, I know you're feeling me because you are in the Midwest as well, but holy bucket sauce. It has been snowing all day. It's gorgeous powder. If there was skiing nearby me, I would be on the slopes. Or if it wasn't also minus 5 degrees, I would be on the slopes. But I didn't know it could snow when it's negative degrees. Who knew?
Yeah, it started snowing here a couple hours ago, just lightly. But luckily, we're ready to just sit for the next at least couple days. Hopefully by Saturday, we'll be able to travel. So,
oh, yeah. I'm luckily not traveling until post-Christmas. So I got plenty of time for the world to reacclimate itself to suddenly having a whole bunch of snow. Clark, are you getting doused over there?
It's snowing here. It's terrible. It's been at least 7 inches of snow that has remained on the ground, and I hate it.
Have you grown to appreciate snow, Clark? Or is it always hold just a terrible place in your heart as a Texas man?
When you have nothing to do and you're stocked and the internet's working, it's not so bad. It's pretty. Otherwise, it is a sad hellscape that I cannot wait to get escape.
Oh man, I've enjoyed your trip into the wilderness, Clark, or not even the wilderness, just into winter weather.
There's nothing like waking up before work and drawing some hot water to put in your duck's watering thing because it's ducks. Frozen. It's so great.
Oh, the duckies. Do they have a little heater? I assume that little indoor heater that they can heat.
We have a little house that we have built for them, and we put the brooding heat lamp in there. Okay. They seem to prefer that.
Shocking.
That's all the duck talk, I guess.
And that is, well, it's from the duck father, so it only
chickens
makes
and
sense.
Ducks. You know, we're diverse here on the farm.
Wow. Oh man, that's impressive. I didn't know when were the chickens added?
Midsummer, they got me at the farm store when they said the older ones are half off, and both the cheap person in my brain and the person that's like, if they're gonna die, they die in the first week, and these are older and cheaper. I couldn't help it, so we got chickens.
That's a deal you can't pass up on. And when you see a deal you can't pass up on, you literally can't pass up on it. All right, let's talk football, you guys. Hopefully those who are listening, for the most part, you have won that first round of your fantasy playoffs. And if it started in week 15 and you are furthering your quest for a fantasy championship, even if you are not, there's still, you played the game to win or to not finish last at the very least. Hopefully there are some good fantasy punishments out there. We will start with some nerdgasms. I don't have a nerdgasm per se to start us off. I do just want to say that sometimes as a fantasy analyst, it's frustrating when all of the thought process that went into your play was right, and it just happened to fall in a different person's lap. And that was last week. I was all on Isaiah Pacheco's beautiful matchup against the Houston Texans, and it all fell in Jerick McKinnon's lap, which I took as a hit because I started Pacheco for that exact reason. I was all excited and I touted him on the podcast. So just, as we approach the Christmas season and, the thought behind a gift is the most important part of the gift. The thought behind a Chiefs running back blowing up last week against the Texans was right. Just wrong Chiefs back running back. Sunk me.
McKinnon has, in sleeper at least, back-to-back 30-point games.
It's
like he has
preposterous.
9 and 8 targets in the past 2 weeks, and he's only dropped 2 of those, and he did not have any drops last week. So that's from the week before. He's balling. I kind of figured as soon as the door opened, like with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that it wasn't always going to be Isaiah Pacheco, but I didn't think it would be to the extent of McKinnon, because we've seen McKinnon come in and have some pretty good games in seasons past, but I did not think he would be like a linchpin of the Chiefs offense for 2 weeks in a row.
Seriously. 1.17 fantasy points per touch for McKinnon this season. That's his per rating. Preposterous.
It's insane.
Number
They
two.
threw a screen pass to Isaiah Pacheco, which is huge. I hated the segregation of duties for Pacheco. Pacheco's a long-term dynasty stash, much more than I think someone to really rely on. Like, he's having good games as a football player, but it's like that rushed for 96 yards, got 9.6 points in PPR. So it's just one of those very disappointing PPR lines. But he can catch. He's getting the ball. I advanced in every league except for one. I do several FFPC leagues, and even in the consolation bracket, you're playing for a better pick. So advanced in everything but one. I faced the McKinnon owner, and thanks to a Herculean effort by Tyler Higbee, squeaked by and got into that second round.
Well done. Tyler Higbee coming out of nowhere to carry that fantasy.
First TD of the year.
Seriously, Clark. What a time.
I'm sitting there and I see the corner way off of Higbee, and the announcer's like, "Did you know the Rams have it?" I'm like, "Here it is, dude. Just
this is it.
A nice little slant. It'll be just fine." And the corner doesn't even bother stepping up. And Tyler Higbee is just running around like it's in practice. And he scores a touchdown, and that put me over the top.
Clark was the happiest boy before Christmas.
Usually when the announcers are telegraphing something like that, it's like, "Oh, he hasn't missed this kick in 4 years." And then he just shoves it,
shakes
off
it
to the
50
sideline.
feet to the right.
It's good to see that it worked out this time around.
The reverse commentator curse. Jordan, do you have a nerdgasm for the week?
No, my nerdgasms have all been overtaken by grievances.
Ooh,
so
yes, a little tease for what we're gonna celebrate at the end of the show. Clark, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do. So I took the Colts plus 3.5 at the Vikings. And so at 30-0 at halftime, I was like, well, this ticket's cashing. And then they make it super interesting. The Colts lose, but that half point still gets me the win. So that is my nerdgasm for this week.
That is exciting. Wow, man, you were on the edge of your seat for many games this weekend.
It's spicy.
It's a
spicy time of year.
That Vikings game was utterly insane. I caught just the tail end of it because I turned on the TV, and the fact that it went into overtime, and it's just everything about that broke right for them. And sadly, I know, Jordan, you tweeted this, but it's like devastating that Matt Ryan owns 28-3 and 33-0 as giving up those leads. And I know the quarterback doesn't give up those leads, it's defense, but and play calling on the offensive side. But God, what a terrible, terrible thing to have under your belt.
Yeah,
you're not going to be on the front page.
Snowball just
on the back page.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The snowball it got going, pun intended, for a snowy Minnesota. All right. Well, if that's all the nerdgasms we got, let's move into week 16 fantasy football. And let's talk some must starts for you. Clark, why don't you start us off with someone who you're putting in every one of your lineups?
I try to do a little stream of conscious when I write these up, and I'll just give you a little snippet. Must starts, next line. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. It's week 16. What do you look at? Like, what do you want? Tom Brady, probably a good start. The Buccaneers have a little life, even though the Bengals, I think, if there were still doubters out there, the Bengals have showed no losing the Super Bowl hangover. They are good. Joe Burrow's just really good. He's surrounded by weapons, but the Buccaneers look a little bit better. They moved the ball. Tom Brady finally got off the schneid, played decently. The Cardinals are going to be starting Trace McSorley, unfortunately. And so all those DeAndre Hopkins shares not looking so great. But I'm going to say Brady if you're kind of desperate at quarterback. If you play with jerks like me, who is going out and trying to pick up Gardner Minshew in every league just to be mean to the Jalen Hurts owner, Tom Brady should be available, and you can plug him in and start.
Yep. 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns last week against the Bengals, which is a Bengals defense. I mean, they picked him off twice, but this is a Bengals defense that's been really good against quarterbacks this season from a fantasy perspective and from an NFL actual perspective. So that kind of performance against a really good defense going up against a Cardinals defense that is not good at all in the slightest. You hope that he can build upon that and put together a QB1 performance. I'll piggyback off of that because one of my must starts this week is another quarterback. Jordan, this is just for you. Aaron Rodgers going up against the Miami Dolphins. If you got Aaron Rodgers, you are firing him up. He's fully healthy but he has a fully healthy passing attack now with Romeo Doubs back. And our resident Packers fan can tell us that certainly helped the offense, even though Christian Watson managers were freaking out because he suddenly was an afterthought as Rodgers got his real number one guy, Romeo Doubs, back and was targeting him. He ranks 10th in per, averaging 0.43 fantasy points per attempt. That's Rodgers. And Miami, of course, because teams have to toss the ball a lot to keep up with them, and their pass defense has not been great. Third most pass attempts allowed per game, 37 this season, and the second most fantasy points, 21.3 per game, two quarterbacks. So I like Rodgers to also look pretty good, also be building upon some good performances with a fully healthy offense this week.
Yeah, I would like this matchup a little bit better actually if it was in Green Bay. Unfortunately, it is in Miami, but that could also mean that the Packers are going to have to put up a lot of points to go with this track team of a squad that the Dolphins have. Like, I'm not very. I don't think I will spend my Christmas watching the Packers soft shell defense get boat raced.
You don't want to watch cover two
Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think I'll just have Red Zone on and catch the highlights.
Yeah, I think
and go. I mean, yeah, I like the call on Aaron Rodgers. Again, like, it's going to be a boat race, and so we think it's going to be a boat race, and so either the Packers are going to lose by 30, or Aaron Rodgers is probably going to have a pretty good game. They looked good the last time they played. AJ Dillon, again, fortunately,
AJ Dillon
got all the touchdowns, which
coming
was
out of
exactly
nowhere.
what I needed. Like, I was going up
playing
against
Aaron
Rodgers.
Jones.
I was playing against Rodgers, and so I just needed not Aaron Rodgers to get the touchdowns, and that worked out. But they've looked a little sharper. And, while we're talking about that game, the Dolphins bounce back after two bad games. They lose to Buffalo, but they don't look inept doing so. So feeling a little bit better about the Dolphins after what owners hoped was not the Dolphins going into the tank at the end of the season.
Nice. Good Dolphin pun there. Yeah, shout out to that one person who had the cojones to start AJ Dillon in a do or die playoff game and win because AJ Dillon suddenly scored 2 touchdowns. And shout out to those many people who had him on his bench and watched 20 plus points go on their bench.
You basically had to predict whether or not the Packers coaching staff would remember that it's December and they should just give the ball to their standing tree trunk.
Especially when he only needs to fall forward a yard to score a touchdoke.
Yeah, just keep those legs churning, AJ.
It's amazing how effective a strategy that is. Yeah. And I actually like for this to be a high scoring game. Like, we're calling this a boat race. And I think in Miami, there's a much higher chance that actually plays true because you're not going to hopefully have any real weather impact. Whereas in Green Bay, if it's getting hit with this snowstorm, I mean, that's going to be like a 10-13 game. And no fantasy person wants that. That is boring unless you're an AJ Dillon manager, because that boy is going to be getting the rock 50 times. Jordan, who's a must start for you this week?
My must start is a little bit more of a, you should be okay to start him in the flex spot. And I'm going with DJ Chark. He kind of got sacrificed to the god of Sauce last week with Sauce Gardner, who's just been shutting down everybody. But before that, he was wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 23, putting up 20 and 13.8 full point PPR points, I believe that is, against Minnesota and Jacksonville, which are fairly soft secondaries. And Carolina brings another opportunity for DJ Chark. Location of the game isn't really a big deal here, as if they were in Detroit, great, but they're not. Next best thing going down south, they're playing against Carolina. Last week, Carolina played pretty solid against wide receivers. They didn't allow reception to wide receivers that went for a touchdown, but they still gave Deontay Johnson 10 targets, who caught the ball all 10 times for 98 yards. George Pickens added another 53. So I like DJ Chark's matchup. And I think that, we might slowly, progressively, and this might be the game. Maybe I'm calling this wrong, but I think that Jamison Williams I think we're starting to see that he's just going to be, we're going to straight line you for a couple of weeks. We're not going to do anything that's going to cause you to have any setbacks. We're not going to ask you to do too much because we have DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds. These are all very good complementary pieces who can do good things for Jared Goff and make him look like top 15 quarterback right now. So DJ Chark, flex him.
I like the call, especially because prior to him running into Sauce Gardner, back-to-back 90-plus yard games against Jacksonville and Minnesota, and you're playing another cushy matchup. So he's a big play part of this offense, and I think you're totally right, Jordan. The only reason that he put down a down week last week was because he went up against one of the best corners in the league right now, even in his rookie season, and Carolina doesn't quite have. JC Horn is good, but I think that's I think he still can. DJ Chark can still break free for a couple of big plays against this Carolina secondary.
Yeah, I like it, and I like it in general. DJ Chark is one of those, I'm sure all have our fantasy loves, people who you thought were just awesome. And, I hit on DJ Chark in his breakout season, and that has just kept me coming back to him over and over. So it's now definitely a love-hate relationship. But the Lions are good. I mean, they started the season off losing some really close games, but they're obviously picking up momentum now. They put up 20 against a really good Jets defense that was playing really well against them and squeaked it out. The Lions are -3 at the Panthers. There is going to be some investment in that matchup. I think the Lions are going to absolutely murder the Panthers. It's not going to be close. No.
The Lions, who worked their way up into the top 10 of Patty's Neff rankings, which is just a kind of overall conglomeration of, it's basically a version of DVOA, his version of DVOA. So the Lions, I did 6-1 in their last 7. I think they started 1-6 and are now 6-1 and went 6-1 in the last 7. So this team is good. Their offense has been good. Their defense is now becoming one of the best run defenses in the league. So watch out, Donta Foreman managers, maybe stay away from that. But I'm just like a killer for these segues, you guys, because Clark eased me in with a veteran quarterback in a nice matchup. Jordan, you're easing me in with a DJ playing in this game, but on the other side of the ball, DJ Moore versus the Detroit Lions. Moore has finished a wide receiver 1 is 2 of his last 3 games, all with Sam Darnold. So with Darnold starting at quarterback, we've gotten good wide receiver production from DJ Moore. He's 8th among wide receiver in target share this season, which means no matter what's going to happen, he's going to get his. And the Lions are allowing the most targets, yards, and second most fantasy points, 40.7 per game to wide receivers this season. So I am very much liking to start DJ Moore. I know he's been a guy who's kind of had a rocky season, but I think in this fantasy, if in the fantasy playoffs, this is a matchup. He's going to get his work. He's going to get his work against a defense that's given up a lot of looks and a lot of points. I like him to put together a solid flex wide receiver 2 week.
Yeah, DJ Moore has been making some pretty insane plays when he gets the opportunity. The thing is just it's opportunity for him. Yeah. The QB situation in Carolina hasn't been great, but I don't know who's going to have more yards, which DJ. Should we have a little beer bet? Just see
obviously
who's got the bigger yardage.
Whoever has the biggest.
DJ Moore is going to have a bad week. I'm just saying we got to have a DJ battle. I think
DJ off. It's on the books. DJ off. Whichever DJ has the most yards, the loser, the other DJ has to send a beer so that we can weather the storm with it.
The other DJ the other person has to do a DJ set somewhere.
Yes.
In the near.
Yes.
You
perfect.
have to spin records. You have to hype up the crowd.
That's how we'll start next week's show. Is the loser of this has to do their best DJ mime. I'll make a mix, and you have to do your best DJ mime. It's perfect. Perfect. And then dear listeners, can view this on the YouTubes. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Oh, God, my transitions are filthy today.
First time in the history of podcasting, I would say.
Anyone have any final must starts they want to touch on before we move on?
I want to put out in the universe
that
Nick Chubb has had a couple of, and I'm using quotes here, bad games. Those games where, again, you rush for 98 yards and you get 9.8 points. Very disappointing. He's had a couple of those after just being white hot at the beginning of the year. And I need him. So that's going to happen. I love it.
It's the lack of touchdowns has really capped his ceiling, and that sucks. Really does.
It's been.
And I do want to say, while we're talking about the Browns, all this Jacoby Brissett actually pretty good. No, he's not. He is a middling backup quarterback, and that's good. Like he should be in the league, but I cannot believe how many times I've heard people say, maybe they should put Jacoby Brissett in there instead of Deshaun Watson. That's you. I don't think that you watch football. If you do, I know Watson's struggling. I get it, but Jacoby Brissett, they're not a starting caliber NFL quarterback. That's about as mean as I will get on this podcast.
That's as mean.
He's like Jacoby Brissett is an 8 good starts quarterback. Like him, Taylor Heineke, like Ryan Fitzpatrick when he was still in the league. They'll give you 8 good ones, and then after that, you're like, well, we actually do need to draft
playing with house money.
Yeah,
I think 8's generous, but you're right on.
Yeah,
if Jacoby Brissett is your backup quarterback, you're doing really well.
Yeah,
but let's not. Come on.
Yeah. Saints in the last 4 weeks, Clark, giving up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs.
I really need it.
Nick Chubb, let's see something from you.
What's going on in New Orleans, by the way? I haven't seen them on Red Zone a lot. I see Chris Olave pop up every now and then. Juwan Johnson,
who's just all he does is score touchdowns.
Touchdown. Yeah, that's basically it.
The man has scored. This is insane. The man has scored literally. I mean, there's only 2 games in his last 7 that he hasn't scored a touchdown in, and 2 of those games he's had multiple touchdowns. This man is a tight end 8 in half-point PPR, and he's 20% roster in sleeper leagues.
Watching the Saints is really, really difficult. You see Olave making plays, so again, in Dynasty, you're super pleased with Olave. You think he's going to be a good NFL receiver for a long time. Speaking of quarterbacks who are not very good, Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. Alvin Kamara's not getting the ball in any kind of creative way. Watching Saints games is very difficult right now, and I highly don't recommend it. I don't know what's going on. There'll be a new coach, I think, in New Orleans next year, and unfortunately, they have mortgaged their future in the first-round pick next year, which leaves the Eagles kind of sitting pretty.
Zero cap.
One of the best teams in the league also having is it still a top 10 pick? I mean, it's close, it's top 15, I think. So
it's
good job, Eagles front office, yet again.
Currently it's slated to be the 9th overall pick, according to Tankathon. We're going to have in the top 12 of this first round, 4 of those don't belong to the team that it should. 2 in the top 4. Houston, Chicago, then the Seahawks from Denver, and the Lions from the Rams. Ooh, the Lions getting a top 4 pick after a good season.
The Seahawks.
The Seahawks getting Denver. Oh, the Seahawks just absolutely won. Oh my gosh. Brilliant move.
The Lions are going to get a good building block guy. So is Seattle. And then Philly at what are they going to pick at 9?
Yeah.
They're just going to get a luxury item.
It's going to be
going to draft Michael Mayer, who's the top tight end. And they're just, doubling down for Jalen Hurts, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's going to be
the draft.
The draft. God, we have so much time to get excited about it, you guys. Jordan is already getting excited about your Dynasty 2023 rookie drafts. He's got his rankings on NerdBallFF.com. So many good plugs, you guys. Feel like an outlet.
We got bowl games coming up. Some stars are going to be born.
Just like Lady Gaga. All right, before we go, it is the season 'tis the season of Festivus, as Jordan has reminded us. And while this is supposed to be a top 5 of some variety, really, I think it's just a celebration of Festivus and an airing of grievances. As the fantasy season comes to a close, this is our time to just share what we have on our minds. And Jordan, why don't you start us off, since it is you who reminds us of the true meaning of this holiday. Air some grievances.
Yes, so I think more out of their fantasy leagues by now, either eliminated through the regular season or just eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. So I figured everybody is just in the mood to just get it off their chest, whatever you're feeling, whatever you hated about this season, because this season felt a little iffy, felt wonky
Weird
to me. So yeah, very weird. And we'll actually get to that at my number 1 grievance, but number 5, we'll start at the bottom. Kyle Pitts' usage this season was a pretty high complaint until he got injured, but just the tight end play as a whole has been absolutely terrible this season for fantasy. Travis Kelce, we all know what the position. He has 306 fantasy points right now. Second is Mark Andrews, who has like half of that. He has 182 fantasy points. And I've been trying to get Mark Andrews, like that meme of him or that guy poking something with a stick and like do something. I'm trying to get that out of Mark Andrews for like 3 weeks now because it has not been great. But also before getting hurt, Pitts put together 80 yards and one touchdown just one time. So it's this upcoming draft. The reason I mentioned Michael Mayer before too is that I think the tight end draft is going to be a little bit juicier than it has been in years past. But this season, God, I hope it was the last time that we just have it's one tight end and everybody else. Usually there's like 3 or 4.
Yeah. This has been a season for Clark's Travis Kelce or bust bandwagon. It has truly come to fruition.
Pete, you're too kind, because it was Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, or bust. And Andrews has been disappointing. He started the season long numbers are deceptive because yes, Mark Andrews is second and that's good, but he's been killing you lately. He started the season off good. He was neck and neck with Kelce, and it's been all downhill from there. I will implore listeners, even though I say draft Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, or just know that you're going to lose at tight end, I doubt it's going to be this bad.
I hope
year.
not.
So let's not overreact. Kelce should still be in the first round.
Kelce going in the 101,
he shouldn't be
baby.
Like 104, right? Like he should be like 108 or so. But Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase should still go ahead of Travis Kelce.
Don't listen to Clark. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's being modest. Travis Kelce 101, baby. Trade everything you've got for Travis Kelce in Dynasty. Somehow he's going to have another 5 years of elite tight end 1 performance.
Tight end is to fantasy as franchise QB is to real NFL. You got to get one.
Yep.
Otherwise, the rest doesn't matter.
Otherwise, your team sucks. I'm freaking streaming like Evan Ingram this week.
Hey, that could be a good play though.
It could be a great play, but again, it's just like it's tight end position is a hot mess.
But,
give me number 4, Jordan.
Sorry, I just wanted to backtrack to Clark's point real quick about Mark Andrews. He did have like a bunch of good games in the first 6 weeks of the season, 22, 23, 28, and 25. But that's over 100 points, and he only scored 180 some this year.
Yeesh.
Like over 50% of your production came in less than half of a season. Number 4 is, I'm still mad about this. Week 14 having 6 teams on a bye. I think the schedulers got it extremely wrong this season. Not just on that, because there were only 2 teams on a bye in week 13. But the primetime games just also kind of fell off a cliff. They're just either one team is really good and one team is really bad, or on occasion they're both really bad. There were pretty decent matchups in the beginning of the year, and then we realized Denver's not very good. We realized that the Colts aren't very good, even though they had a bunch of primetime matchups. So we kind of got bombarded with some bad matchups, and it peaked for me in week 14 when 6 teams were on a bye. I'm like, dude, the majority of your audience, NFL, probably plays fantasy football in some sort of capacity. What are we doing?
And yeah, the playoffs, everyone's battle for playoff seeding is happening that week. And you could have half your team on a bye and you're just shit out of luck. There's a guy in our home league who had that happen, not to him, but to the person who he needed to win in order for him to make it into our playoffs. And half her team was on bye. And so he was just like, well, I'm screwed because week 14 is just a shit show.
Yeah, and I'd like to tag on to this. 17 games, it's too much.
Agreed.
I have my own little grievances over here. I'm going to try to fold them into Jordan's. The schedule I think was crappy this year. I do like that the NFL has built in some flexibility into moving games around. Because look, we try to prognosticate this for fun, but I mean, even the people that do it for a living, I mean, this is 100% their job. They're really bad at this. We are not good at knowing what teams are going to be good outside of like, okay, the Chiefs are probably going to be pretty good, but you can't just schedule the Chiefs.
Sunday, Monday football from here on out is the Chiefs versus someone.
Like, the Chiefs just play on Monday. That's just their. You can't do that. 17 weeks is too long. It feels like the season's going on too long. Like we're coming up on Christmas, and it's we don't know what's going on with the playoffs. I mean, this is just. I don't like the step that they're taking. The NFL made a lot of changes with things lately, and just like this is one where they missed. I know they're not going to roll it back, but. They missed on this one. 17 is too much.
And think of all the players who've like just now started to accumulate injuries. Like obviously the big ones, and injuries are fluky, but you're also after playing just a prolonged season, you're going to get even that one more week adds a lot. And you got Jalen Hurts is injured. You had Jonathan Taylor get injured, and you got these guys. I mean, the Colts are out of it, but like Jalen Hurts, if Jalen Hurts misses any serious time or is hampered by this injury, that's poisoning your product. And we don't like that.
They're taking an NBA style approach to the playoffs. Like, guys, everyone can't get into the playoffs. Yeah. Let's tone it down a little bit.
No participation trophies here.
I think they should have 17 is just 17 games is just a really wonky point to be at. And I really think they should have considered just going right to 18 and incorporating a pair of bye weeks in there. Like extend the season, but by doing that, also extending the amount of breaks and rest that a player and a team can get. Because I'm thinking like with your point about Jalen Hurts getting hurt or anybody else who's accumulated injuries at the back half of the season, if somebody gets injured in like week 3 was something, we've seen people start to heal and get back much quicker. And these guys could actually be there for the end of the season if it was extended just a little bit, or if teams did get a 2-week bye, or
right.
I mean, it's not like they're running into a lot of competition at the end of the fall here. They've already overlapped with the important parts of baseball and the college football season. Just, I don't know, stay off Saturdays then, I guess, for college.
Yeah. And as soon as college is over, take over Saturdays.
Yeah.
The NFL is a dominant beast. Number 3, Jordan.
Number 3 is Denver. Not
just the city of Denver.
Spent some time there. I lived there. I loved it. It's a great place. I think the Denver Broncos were a grievance, not just for me, but for many of people who were hoping that the infusion of a franchise quarterback into a pretty loaded roster would unlock a new pool of fantasy production for us. Some of us didn't think the transition to Russell Wilson would be that drastic, but I don't think any of us thought it would be this lackluster. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and like, remember Albert O, who was like a good tight end, and he was really hyped up, and then he just lost favor because he didn't fit in the offense, not a very good blocker, and now they just have this uber athletic tight end that he might be on the team. He might be getting coaching decision scratches. I'm not sure. KJ Hamler injured all year, so that's not entirely on him. But yeah, none of those guys are extremely fantasy relevant except for Jeudy, who can put up some pretty good points for you. Cortland Sutton's been like
middling.
Yes, jinx. So basically my grievance is that Denver is a fantasy black hole. As soon as Javonte Williams got hurt, they lost Tim Patrick in the preseason. I kind of thought he would be a fantasy relevant tool. So who's to say what have went down there? But yeah, just all around Broncos a little rough this year. Plus with that division, we were so excited about the division.
Yeah. Get your shit together, Broncos. Get your shit together. And Chargers, throw the ball more. Be more aggressive. You have Josh Allen. And by Josh Allen, I mean Justin Herbert.
Yeah. I'm with you on this one. And what I have marked down is the old reliable QB is really disappointed this year. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady for most of the year. Like, what happened? These guys used to be the hedge against, like, yeah, I want Josh Allen, but the Bills fan in my league is going to take him in the second round. So, good for him, which actually this year turned out to be like a great pick. Like, all of these guys are disappointed. And it's killed, I mean, a lot of my projections, right? I mean, like everybody, I don't know of any analysts really crowing about how they've nailed this season. Just a lot of disappointing quarterback play. And that drug everybody down. So, gosh, Denver is the poster child, though.
Yeah, that's a great call, Clark, because it has just been the veteran quarterback play has just been kind of a sink. It feels like less so for running backs and wide receivers, just because there's an absurd depth there. But like quarterback and tight end, it's very much there. You lost all that kind of like middle depth. It felt like, the guys in the later rounds who you'd be like, oh, this is someone who, will still get you pretty good production. It just doesn't exist. You had either one of the top guys or you're streaming, which never is a good strategy. Jordan, number 2.
Number 2, my grievance is Gabe Davis. But I am going to use this more as a conversation to dovetail into wide receiver 1B production has seemed to be lacking. And there's been plenty of it with 1B production to 1As. I'm thinking of Jalen Waddle to Tyreek Hill, to Devontae Smith, to AJ Brown, or T. Higgins to Jamar Chase. But Davis has been more like a 2B than a 1B. He's had a few big games, but elsewhere he's just lacked catches, yardage. We thought this Bills offense was going to be a little bit more explosive in that regard. And Gabe Davis was being hyped up really hard during the offseason. But when you're lacking yardage and catches like Gabe is, you want your wide receiver to be able to put up maybe some stats elsewhere, maybe get a little Deebo Samuel situation going on, like rushing. But no, he has 0 catches. He lines up on the outside, and that's it. He's not the only 1B who's struggled, though. As I said, I kind of count Mike Evans to Chris Godwin's 1B. He's had a pretty rough season for his ADP. Part of that is the Tom Brady of it all, but part of it's just the Bucs having a rough year. Cortland Sutton, has mentioned before. Allen Robinson, big yikes.
You're like
Elijah Moore,
big fat
list right
this
now.
This is
Jordan
Clark's
was
roster.
just reading my must draft list from the beginning of the season, aren't you?
This is where all the grievances are coming from. It's like I remember this and I've carried it with me the entire season. It's just Cortland Sutton. You were supposed to be my wide receiver too. Allen Robinson. I remember that training camp story. Like Allen Robinson.
Looking really good out there. Everyone remembers that training camp story. God.
I remember very specifically saying, "Oh, do we think Allen Robinson just all of a sudden got bad at football?" Well,
spoiler alert. Oh man,
the Rams actually just decided to.
The Rams also
get bad at football. They took a season off, I think.
They did. They won that Super Bowl, and they're like, "Cool, peace. We are out." Yeah, yep, totally agree. Good grievance list so far, Jordan. I'm excited for number 1.
Number 1 is for everyone. Everybody, I think, can or should have this grievance, and it's the scoring. The scoring of team offenses in the NFL. So, I love seeing defenses play well. It's nice that they can actually play the game again. However, just 2 years ago was the highest average scoring for team offenses of all time. This season, 18th highest. So we have dropped precipitously from last season in terms of offensive scoring for teams. Both points and yardage is down from last season on average. This is only the 11th most yards on average per game this season. So yardage is way down. Passing touchdowns are down to 42nd all time after topping out 2 seasons ago. So the average amount of passing touchdowns per game is 42nd all time right now. They're just not scoring enough. Rushing yardage has ticked up, but touchdowns have not gone up with that. So that's just another frustrating aspect of it. Teams are averaging less than 1 rushing touchdown per game. Since Pro Football Reference started tracking turnover percentage in 1998, this season is the lowest, only 10.9% turnover percentage. So they're not turning the ball over as often. They're just not doing as much with the football. And also points per drive is down from the past 2 years. So offenses, just the game, it seems all around on that side of the football has taken a step back. And maybe it's defenses catching up to the rules. We touched on that a little bit earlier in the season, but man, that's tough for fantasy. That's why you're having a wonky season if you did.
Yeah, it's just, yes, it has been a season of just averageness across the board. And that's no fun unless you're in a punter league. If you have a fantasy punter league, maybe that's what we need to do instead of if you got rid of the kicker spot, let's introduce the punter spot. And you can get, whatever, 0.1 points per yards that the punter kicks in a game. And you'll have some truly elite guys. They might even outscore quarterbacks given how the offenses look this year.
So on Sundays, I find myself begging really good players to just get me a touchdown. Find the end
something.
Zone. Lamar Jackson, Nick Chubb the past couple of weeks. I've just been screaming at my television set. Television set. I sound like I'm 1,000.
Well, we did just spend the last 20 minutes airing grievances in classic old man fashion.
That's true.
Yelling at the kids on our yard. Clark nods. He knows all about it.
Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite pastimes when the NFL season's over. I just get my lawn chair, and then that's how I spend my Sundays.
With the chickens and the ducks.
Honorary mention for grievances, and I think this ties into the lack of good offense this year, is bad coaches. I have at least 6 coaches listed here that I think should not be coaches in the NFL right now. And that's Jeff Saturday, Matt Eberflus, Matt Rule is already gone actually. So just 5. Josh McDaniels, Nat Hackett, and Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes.
That's too many.
It's so many. And it's just dumb decisions. It's every game felt like it had like one just clear dumb decision. And even the commentators, announcers are just starting to be like, what are they doing? This is absurd. Why are you going out for a field goal here? Or why are you running this play on 4th and 40?
Something that feels odd to me is that if you've played 20 games of Madden, you have mastered clock control. You know when to call timeouts. You know when to do this. You understand how scoring works. Like anyone who's after 20 games of Madden, you got this. These dudes are getting paid millions of dollars, and it's not like questionable decisions. Like the Jets coach, whose names escape me, who I like and who I think has done a great job.
Robert Saleh.
Your team you need a touchdown, and there's a $1:20 left. You got a couple timeouts, and you complete a long pass over the middle.
Call a timeout.
And you just let it roll. What? Come on, dude. That's like. I don't understand how difficult it is to scheme things or to manage, 60 of the world's most premier athletes. I don't understand any of that. But if you can't hit these basics, I feel like you're not putting the work in. And this is an industry that just fawns all over themselves for coaches who spend like 28 hours a day in the facility. You don't know when to call a timeout. Dude, that's like...
incredible.
They have people in the booth sitting there
literally
telling
their
them
job.
when they should challenge something, or like, hey, maybe you should take a second look at this, throw that red flag. Like,
just have someone in the booth. Just have one person like pay me $10. Nah, $10 a game is too little. Pay me a livable
expensive. I'll take it.
Pay me a livable. You get
free
booth
food and some wine.
Go. This is NFL. Are you listening? This is all you need to do. That being said, this is the same NFL that doesn't have a full-time referee staff. that their referee staff is part-time because God forbid we cough up to actually have like trained professionals anyways, lots of grievances can be aired.
Talk about grievances, the roughing the passer calls that are just seemingly random and spiteful. What are we doing, guys?
It's just, there are many calls. There are many calls that are just like, what are we doing? What are we doing, refs? What are we watching? Anyways.
Good list, Jordan.
Yes.
Good.
Excellent job.
I had a lot to get off my chest after a pretty disappointing fantasy season. So
a great celebration of Festivus, I would say. And with that, we are all done. That's all we got for you this week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice, and go follow us on the tweeters for as long as it exists at NerdBallFF. You can follow myself at Peter and Rogers, follow Clark at NFL Clark, and Jordan at Jordan_Smith27. And of course, make sure you check out all the amazing content we're putting out over on the site at NerdBallFF.com. Jordan is dropping dynasty rankings. I'm dropping starts and sits. We got all the content you need to both win your fantasy league and get prepared to win your fantasy league in the future. So until next week, my fellow nerds,